Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Let me spit words out rather than just go ba-ba-ba-ba.
Hi, this is Dustin Chrisman, first fan, Carlos Ruiz apologist, third degree patron, occasional third degree contributor, and former Cotton Bowl loudmouth. Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90. Shop Soccer 90 for all of your FC Dallas U.S. national team and international club gear. The new MLS jerseys have landed, including the new FC Dallas home jersey. All Third Degree listeners receive 20% off their purchase when you use code Third Degree at checkout on soccer90.com. Some exclusions may apply.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode. Number, please.
149.
Of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, it's me, Peter. With first, Dan Crooke. Always ready, Dan Crooke. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Peter. Sorry, I wasn't ready then.
So you're not always ready. You've already proven me wrong right off the bat. And everybody's hero, the amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hello, Peter. How are you today?
I'm good, Buzz. Please pimp your Patreon and tell everybody what they get for their dollars.
Oh, yeah. If you choose to support us on the Patreon, you get a little the little bonus Third Degree Burns that are, sort of every other day, little mini podcasts, if you will, about various topics. And then if you choose to support at a certain higher level, you can have a reward of the Discord community, small community of like-minded supporters of this particular podcast or website. And of course, we also have T-shirts you can get too if you prefer to spend your money that way.
Sweet, clean T-shirts. Those are the best. Well, the new season approaches ever closer, and today we got to watch on a stream an actual preseason game as Dallas was down in Austin facing off against the Fire. How many teams are down in Austin right now? Does anybody know?
4 that I know of, whoever Houston played today, I don't remember who it was. But other than that, I've heard that there might be more, but I wasn't really paying attention, to be honest.
Okay, so since we last spoke a week ago, Dallas has played in 2 of these preseason games, several days ago against San Antonio, and then, as I said, today, Chicago. The first game against San Antonio was a drubbing 6-0, but today was a more of the donuts kind of serving 0-0. Any big takeaways from the 2 games from you two guys?
Well, for me, the first game, San Antonio game, they'd only been in training camp for 10 days and they had a bunch of trialists. And honestly, that was absolutely worthless other than like running around and getting some fitness. I mean, it was 5-0 within 30 minutes. North Texas would give you a better game, frankly. No offense to San Antonio. I'm sure it's just where they were in this season. The second game was much more valuable, the Chicago game. So it's the one.
I like that covering your ass from the San Antonio fans.
I mean, there are some San Antonio fans out there that probably would blast me and tell me all about why they were bad. That, okay, I get it. That team was not ready to play. They got blasted. That wasn't good.
Right.
I'm sure there's reasons and stuff. So the Chicago game is much more important. And the number one massive takeaway for me on the Chicago game was the absolutely crazy effect the wing flip-flopping had on the Dallas's ability to not play in the offensive end, but to build out of the back. It was for 5 minutes, they were horrible. They couldn't even get to midfield. Then they flipped the wings. They started with Ariella right and around left. They flipped the wings at the 5-minute mark, and all of a sudden it was like the glorious passing, dominating, making all the chances up until the 30th minute mark. And then they flipped the wings back and it went to crap again. Mm-hmm. And every time they flipped it, every time they moved Ariella to the left and Oberon to the right, it was great. Every time it was the other way around, it was terrible. And I have no idea why high wings would affect your ability to build out of the back, but it did. And it was remarkable. Maybe it made somebody else sit back, or maybe Ariella checks more or something into the right sort of gaps. I really have no idea. I'd have to break it down, even watch it again to try and figure out why. But that's a mystery. But I do like the high number of wing flips that keeps people on their toes defensively on the other end, and makes them constantly adjusting, which is a good thing.
Yeah, the thing I was surprised was I did not have Brandon Cervania having the team's first 2 shots from inside the box with late midfield runs on my bingo card.
Yeah, he was my man of the match, actually, because of that adaptation. He's always been a good box-to-box player, but for him to show that new phase of getting forward, because you want both of your eights to be able to do that. Paxton naturally does that. So it's a nice progression for Brandon to be doing that, and which is really good. Dan, what about you? What did you take away from the Chicago game?
I was trying to ignore some meeting that I was supposed to be in to watch it. So the last 20 minutes I didn't get to see a whole lot of. But yeah, I don't know if I'm putting it down to Marcy and Obrian, just kind of their trigger points being so different, because Marcy seems to line up pretty nicely with Ariola, where he drops back quite a bit further. But yeah, there's definitely a disconnect anytime they do that flip with Ariola on the left and Obrian on the right.
So I like you, Buzz. I found that to be very curious and confusing as to why the team seemed to be so incapable of getting out of their own half until they made the switch. But one big takeaway, and again, this is the first time I've seen the team play this year, but remember when we started learning about Nico and Jesus as playing as a 9 and playing as a false 9, I told you that I had a big concern anytime I hear this concept that Dallas is going to play as a false 9, that actually worried me. And a lot of what I thought I saw today, and again, it's so early, like they're still figuring this out, but it did reinforce my concern that playing a formation with Jesus as a false 9 is not going to be a smooth and easy transition.
No, the funny thing is that Jesus has always played like that. This is not the funny part, that for FC Dallas, going all the way back to when he was in the academy. What's the funny part is that he doesn't do that with the national team. When he plays with a false 9 with the national team, he stays where he's supposed to stay. False 9 doesn't mean come back behind the 6, which is what he did a couple of times against Chicago. There's a difference. Now, my personal theory is that I think that Jesus was always Luchi Gonzalez's favorite player. And so all through the academy and then into the first team, Luchi let Jesus do whatever he wanted to do tactically. And I think that's the case, even if he wouldn't admit it. It's unconsciously the case, because Jesus is a clone of the way, although a better one, of the way Luchi played when Luchi was a player in college and in MLS. He plays the same way. So Luchi, I think, always was like, "You're doing awesome, kid." Now, it'll be interesting now when you have Nico Seves here, who came from the national team. I now wonder if we'll see an adaptation. You'll see him go back to Jesus and say, "You can't play like that. You have to play like you played for the U.S." There's a big difference, as I just joked, between the false 9, as it should be, and what we saw against Chicago, when literally there were times where he was behind Edwin. So I know he wants to be part of the build. I think he's trying to do too much, and I think it'll probably talk about this more later in the show on your 5 talking points, Peter, I imagine.
Yes, nice preview. We will. I have 5 things I want to worry about, or I want to discuss, so we'll talk about those here in a little bit. Hey, Dan, so far you at least have gotten to see him a little bit in a Dallas shirt now. Are you feeling any better about Paul Ariola?
Yeah, I turned to Buzz in the press box the other day. I was like, I've seen Paul Ariola have a good game. I mean, I realized that, and I'd sort of, let me spit words out rather than just go so for the presser afterwards, Ariola was one of the players they brought in, and it occurred to me partway through the game why I'd never seen him have a good game. He's played at Toyota Stadium exactly once before that, which was the 2016 under-23s Olympic qualifying game they lost to Colombia. So I've only ever seen him in person play that in 2 games for the US, who, he's kind of struggled with at times. And I actually asked him, I was like, hey, last time you played it was kind of a pretty bad night, that under-23s game. He's like, yeah, I know, it's kind of weird to be in MLS for all this time and not actually come out here. But he's excited to make Dallas his home now, and hey, if he plays anything like he has the last couple of games, fantastic.
The other player that I thought was interesting to see today for the first time was Marco Farfan starting on the left. I thought there was a lot to like, at least in the very weird limited angle we could see in the game against Chicago today. He seems to be a decent pickup for the crew. You mean not crew as in Columbus, but
yeah, for the group, for the team, for the roster. Defensive first player, better defensively, of course, than Ryan Hollingshead, who is not a defensive first player. That's not a shot at Ryan. They're different kinds of players. Farfan has a little bit of ability to get forward. He's more adequate in the verticality aspect than Johnny Nelson. I don't know that we know yet if Farfan's a better passer or dribbler than Johnny Nelson. So right now he's similar to Johnny, but with a little more verticality. So that's, positive. And at this point, healthy, and Johnny's not. So that's part of why Johnny's not here. There's a lot to like if you're looking at a team that is trying to stabilize its defense first. That was one of the biggest things they've cited as a problem compared to last year. And if you're looking for your wings to be a little more of a support your outside back to be a little bit more of a support your wing and then go into the space the wing vacates, then that's a good fit there, as is Tuamasi on the other side. So, again, in the long run, I think you'll definitely see Parker some this year. It's not going to be opening day, of course. But I think in the long run, Parker will be the starter. Maybe not in the long run this season, but he'll definitely start games this season.
All right, I did not get to see the second half of today's game against Chicago. Did Parker play today?
He did. He played the last 30. They made the full line switch at the 60-minute mark. Okay.
Did he turn to the camera and say, "Hey, thanks for all the kind words you said about me, Buzz"?
No, he did not. I think it's.
I'm sure he was thinking it.
Yeah, I doubt it. I certainly hope not. He might be thinking that I must be good enough if they're getting rid of their left back, but he probably is worried about trying to win a spot. Trying to impress a new coach. You only get one chance to make a first impression with a new team and new coach.
So can I, Buzz? Can I steal a bit of yours and do a little bit of a Huntsman dump here?
Yeah, absolutely.
So would it surprise either one of you to find out that I can confirm through an extremely good source that Ryan Hollingshead, in fact, did not ask for a trade and, in fact, didn't even know a trade was coming?
Yeah, that does not surprise me at all that that's the case. I mean,
really?
I told you last week that I felt like the trigger for this thing was Parker. I'm sure that there's some ground level, Ryan always wants to go back to California, sort of, underneath this whole thing. But I'm actually not shocked. I mean, I would have been more shocked if you'd have told me that you were able to confirm that he had asked for a trade, because I don't think Ryan's that kind of guy. He's not a boat rocker. He's a all in, we're all family kind of guy. So like for him to say, now I know it's family first kind of thinking, but he's a team player. He's a leader, an emotional guy that everyone bonds onto. I don't see him as a guy that asked to be traded. So I'm not surprised by that at all. That he did not, in fact, ask to be traded.
I don't know, Dan. Are you surprised by that, or am I just overly emotional?
More surprised than anything that, a player who's served that much time with you, you wouldn't at least say, "Hey, this is what we're thinking of doing."
Yeah.
Yeah, now that part's a surprise. Not telling him you were thinking about it, that's surprising.
See, I think that gets back to the thing that we talked about last week, which is that's what's different about this year, is that all those emotional ties have been severed because you've got a completely unrelated new coaching staff. Not completely, but essentially a whole new bunch of guys in here making decisions that don't have all the emotional attachments. In some ways, maybe that's a good thing. I think Ryan will be great for LAFC, and I'm sure ultimately, they'll love being back in California, and it probably is a win-win for everybody. But I found when I got that confirmation back, I was a bit surprised. So okay,
I think that you have to be, and we've said this before, you have to be brutal in your playing up personnel decisions, and it's why, in fact, usually you have, in a lot of ways, you have a player personnel guy, a technical director, and not your coach that's making these decisions. Because you don't want the coach to be the bad guy in that regard. Now, obviously, a new coach gives you an opportunity to say, "Okay, boys, clean slate across the board. No more relationships with the guys that have been here before." You can take away from that idea, but in the end, that's why a big part of why you have these guys like TDs. And really, I agree with you, Peter, that as much as we love Ryan, this kind of brutalness is the word I like to use. This ruthlessness in your roster moves is the way it has to be.
It's very New England Patriots.
It is. It is. Now they like to talk about family, and they like to do a lot of like trading him to LA specifically, or trading guys when they ask to be traded and not making a big stink about it. Those are the things they do that they do try and pay off people, the relationships. But at the same time, they did trade him without, as you were reporting here, trade him without asking him basically, or him asking for it basically. So that's, or not really telling him that it was in the cards. So that is more ruthless, and I think it's actually okay.
Just to kind of sum up everything about the two scrimmages since that have happened. The other thing that I noticed today was, man, I can't tell you all the warm fuzzies it gives me to see Paxton Pomykal running around the middle of the field doing Paxton Pomykal things. It just makes me feel so good about this season and hopeful.
Yeah, he looks good, right? Yeah,
he does.
Yeah,
looks like old Paxton.
Yeah, he has a. Today I started using the term reborn in the sense that he looks bright and active and happy, the way he's carrying himself. It's so exciting to see. I mean, we'll see how it goes over the course of the season. Got to stay healthy, but right now it's super exciting.
Okay, so enough about that. So there's two other big things to talk about today. One is the aforementioned my 5 talking points for the 22 season, but there's also something equally important, which is kit talk, because yesterday, Wednesday, they started rolling out the new kits for Major League Soccer. Dallas comes out Friday. Which one do we want to do first, guys? I'll let you guys decide between yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Oh, what are the options?
Well, the 5 talking points or kit talk. Which one do you want to do?
Oh, let's do kit talk.
Kit talk first. Okay.
Yeah.
Kit talk first. So right off the bat, we get a new away jersey for the evil, awful, annoying Austin FC. They're calling it the Sentimiento kit, which means that it's toothpaste mint green, which drives me batshit, because I don't like it when clubs wear essentially the same color, just a different shade for both their primary and secondary, because I think this creates all sorts of problems. For example, Austin going to Seattle. Who's going to wear what? And it's going, I know last year there was that weird game where in Austin they wore their black and green and Seattle wore their green, but I thought that was a really poor kit assignment. So you guys got any feelings about this particular setup?
Seattle in their purple at home, or?
Well, I guess you'd almost have to do both away, because the black and purple, I mean, the reason why I assume when they went to Austin last year, they didn't wear their black and purple is because Austin's main jersey is actually mostly black when you really think about it.
Negro, Peter. It's Negro.
Oh, right. It's Negro. Yes. Wait, is it? Wait, no, Buzz, we're not allowed to say Negro. You know that.
I am. I don't work for Austin. I'm allowed to say Negro.
Okay. Well, they're going to think poorly of you and think you're a racist. But anyway, so I don't know. I think the color is, as a shirt in general, it's great. I just don't like it that it's another green shirt for Austin, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the technicality there, and as you point out, that the Austin's primary jersey is black shorts and a mostly black jersey, like 80% black jersey. So technically, that's their, quote, dark jersey, and this lime green is their, quote, light jersey. And Seattle is the opposite. The purple and black one is their, quote, dark jersey, and the green one is their light jersey. So by MLS rules, and I agree with you, it looks terrible, but by MLS rules, Seattle in their rave green against Austin in their blue and the green and black stripes is technically light versus dark by all measures of what MLS considers to be their kit rules. So right. You could go black and purple versus the Verde. They've relaxed a lot, not the light versus dark, matchup thing. You don't have to go that way all the time if the kits are different enough. But in principle, anything that they've approved as either light or dark ought to be able to go up against the other one. So
I wonder if they'll just register that white kit as a third. Like Sporting Kansas City did it a few times when they had the navy away and the sky blue home. Yeah, they did use that silver again, like over and over again.
It certainly wouldn't shock me to see Seattle or Austin, either one, have a third kit, and guys, any given year.
That Seattle jersey is 2 tones of purple. There's no black in it.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought it was black.
It's crazy. It's a really dark purple.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, did anybody ever see a picture with the new mint green Austin jersey with shorts and socks?
No.
Do we know? Is it all one color, or do we know? We don't know.
No, I don't know.
Okay. And then I think we're going to pick up on a theme on Adidas going with monocolored shirts this year. Colorado's is just a very maroon burgundy shirt with the light blue trim, but a cool little sublimation of mountains in there, and I don't really know what else to say about it, other than the fact that I think it's cool they wear light blue shorts and socks with it.
Yeah, I have felt for the last few years that Rapids primary burgundy and sky blue, whatever they really call those colors in their book, I don't care. That's what they are. Is nice. It's a nice kit combo.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a great contribution. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the topographical map thing looks really cool. The Rapids did really well in their photos. They've got backdrops of it as well, with the players kind of sitting in front of it. That, you know, stops it looking like a crappy squiggle on a shirt, like Houston's last away and the Real Salt Lake home.
Like turning on a Facebook page and seeing an old girl from high school hanging out with her super hot husband and good-looking family. I see a star on the Rapids jersey, and that hurts a lot. That hurts a lot. Then we move to the LA Galaxy.
There's a lot of stars on that.
There are a lot of stars on that, both on the sleeves, the collar, and then above a crest. There is a lot, but what is not here is the sash, and I am a bit surprised they took off the sash.
Yeah, that kit's making a run for the most boring kit in MLS history. It's up there.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Not,
I think that's
not
a hard.
history.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that bad. I mean, I don't mind a white shirt. I just don't know why they would take the sash off, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think just so they can refresh it then on the next kit release. Like, you know, if let's say they made the green and yellow, the old like yellow and green one, just flip the colors so it's a dark. Well, you could really hype the sash up then. If it's still on the home kit, it's kind of hard to. And having the sash on this current home kit that's got those quasars as like a sublimation on the jersey itself as well, that would kind of take away from that effect as well.
It's awful. Stop it.
And the pictures show them wearing it with white shorts and white socks. All right. We got a New England Revolution crest after all these years, and it's very Rangers-esque. But they also got a very, very plain navy blue shirt with a sublimated block design in the background. This
weird.
is just it's another very kind of here's the thing. How many legendary clubs throughout Europe have really boring kind of monocolored shirts like this? There's tons of them. So maybe we shouldn't be all hyped up about silly graphical designs, but this is pretty plain. I'd say it's as plain as the LA jersey.
Well, it helps that they've worn, off-colored shorts for a few years now, either white or red, which break it up and make it look better than the solid, blue, navy blue top to bottom.
Unfortunately, Buzz, the article I'm reading does say that the Revs apparently are going to wear it with blue shorts.
Oh yeah, that's
gross.
Yeah,
that's not good. That's a regression.
Now, speaking of sublimated checkers in the background, New York Red Bulls do have a red away jersey. Again, I'm so confused why they wear red away and not at home, but whatever. And the highlight of this kit is that it has a very Croatia-esque like checkerboard in the background of slightly darker squares with the regular red squares, but they're almost like drawn in pencil, or it's some graphical design. It's not bad looking. I actually think this is kind of a cool looking shirt.
Yeah, I think it's really good, actually. You guys will have to check me, but don't all the Red Bull teams wear white at home? Isn't that a thing?
Yeah.
Salzburg, and so it's not surprising that they do that.
Okay.
And the checker pattern, I mean, that goes back with them. Their current away jersey has it, but much smaller. Their captain's armband always has it on. It's on like some of the banners around Red Bull Arena. I don't know, somehow they associate it with it, but it's nice to see them actually having a theme and embracing that.
And then we come to good old Portland Timbers, and what I can only describe as 1930s grandma's curtains, and they are glorious, is the new away shirt, which is in vapor pink with a rose pattern design. Just, this is the failure of this shirt, is the fact that they didn't take the pattern all the way around the back, and the pattern is spaced out so the Alaska Airlines things doesn't get obscured in any way, shape, or form. I assume this has largely been loved by everybody. I made the joke about Grandma's curtains, but I do think this is a cool idea.
Yeah, for me, this one, when they first put it out, when it was just like on various backgrounds or in some video or something, I didn't think it would look that great. Then they put out some images of people wearing it like casual wear. And that's when it sort of clicked for me that like, this is a kit that's meant to be sold to people to be wearing around, that's got a hip, hipster vibe to it, like a throwback, like you say, Grandma's curtains. That's funny, but that's kind of true. It's got an old school sort of flavor to it to me. So I think this is one where they were worried way more about what it would sell like and what it would look like people wear it around than they do actually on the field. Because from the top of the stands, it's just going to look like a muddied, sort of off pinkish brownish thing,
But Dan, I'm interested what Dan thinks of this design and color.
Color's fine. I think the pink and purpley burgundy is a great combination. And it's a nice tie into the Rose City. I just think the execution of it was off. It's just kind of funny because it seems like everyone either loves it or hates it. There's not a whole lot of in between. But I feel like, I think Jonah Henderson on Twitter had done like a mock-up based on just the rose pattern. It was a single rose, and it looked so good that this is. When I saw this, I was like, oh, it's not as good as that was.
Well, the roses in the shirt at the final product are kind of this weird abstract or almost film negative reverse kind of thing. Petals. Yeah, it's I don't know.
I feel tattoo-like to me.
Yeah.
And it does and it's like there's two that are quite close to the collar, so it just looks like a weird shape around the collar.
Yeah. The fact that the back is so stark in just the pink color with no pattern, I know why. I know that there was no way of doing it with the number and the name and making that clear, but it's the same reason why they don't do stripes and hoops on the back. I do like the little logo down at the bottom, or the little badge at the bottom in reference to the Timbers Army with the skull and the Rose City Till I Die in Latin. I think that's a cool little touch. And then that takes us to their nemesis, Seattle Sounders, who got a nifty new rave green and blue checkered design, more like race car design. You know what, guys? I kind of like this. I don't think this is a terrible look.
No, that's a really good kit. Yeah, it's well executed. The first mock-ups people made off of the leak of the checkers, where it was like the whole thing, was rough. I mean, it was a great concept, but there was a lot of checker when you did the whole thing. Having it be like a racing stripe up the middle is actually really nice. It's almost like tiger speckling or whatever cat that would be that has that kind of pattern almost. I think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, insert comment here. No, it seems a solid execution of two difficult colors to work with.
Do they only have 2 MLS cups? Why do I feel like Seattle has like a cajillion MLS cups?
They have 4 US Open cups.
Oh, is that what it is?
And they're in the MLS Cup all the time, it seems like.
Okay. Yeah, they've been in the playoffs every year they've been around in MLS.
All right. Well, so those are the first round of shirts. I know more stuff is coming probably tomorrow and Thursday. Did I miss one?
Well, it hasn't been released yet, but the Miami shirt was like the first leak in MLS. It's just plain pink with a fold-over collar.
But it's Miami pink. It's like flamingo pink, not this Portland Portland's.
There's just nothing to it. It's complete. It's a complete one color, no pattern jersey.
Yeah, but it's actually a good vibrant pink as opposed to the first one, which was just washed out, like you washed your socks with your white shirt.
If they had like the watermarking that was on that jersey on this one, then it'd be good. This is just like somebody put their Hanes t-shirt in the wash with a red sock.
Both of you sound like guys who have done that in your life.
Nope. Yeah, when I was a kid.
Green towel is the best I can say.
Green towel. So what, did MLS break this up are they releasing these in groups? Is there another? I mean, there were no releases today. These were all from Tuesday. I know Dallas is on Friday. Is there more releases coming out tomorrow? Is everything else on Friday?
I think everything's Friday.
Okay. All right. And we're anticipating exactly what you guys drew up on the website. We haven't heard anything different in terms of what Dallas is getting ready to roll out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, no one's told us that we were off the mark.
They tried to they tried to head fake everybody with the purple trombone background thing, right?
Yeah. I just to be clear, the purple kid thing was a joke, everybody. That wasn't intended to be.
Yes.
It's kind of funny. This normally when we do these, like people will be like, "Oh yeah," like like hint, "Oh yeah, nailed it," or "There's a little difference that no one has said anything."
They're probably just so used to you guys getting it right or being so close.
Yeah.
It's like they just expect us to do it, so they don't even worry about it anymore. By the way, the purple background, just for everybody to know, the new shirt is red with blue quasi, lines across the fronts. Red and blue makes purple. That's, I believe, why the purple reference in the background, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're all agreeing on? Okay, so there's kit talk. Good old-fashioned kit talk. Next, so a few weeks ago, I was trying to figure out my feelings about the 22 season, and as I do, I tend to make lists. I love a list, and I think everybody else loves a list. And so I suggested to Buzz and Dan that I present my 5 talking points for the 2022 season, and we discuss them here on the pod, and that's where this is going to take place here now. So, again, this isn't everything. These are kind of my top 5 things that I'm most kind of focused on as we move into the new season. And the first one and the top one is what I call the year of Jesus, and or Jesus, I should say.
Are you aware that the AD in the year, that's what that is?
What?
Never mind. Buzz got it at least.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The year of Jesus. And the thing here is my fascination over the fact, Buzz and Dan, that the team has put a tremendous amount of weight and focus and money on a guy who, while he had a fantastic second half or last half of the 2021 season, I think if we're all being honest, Jesus is a guy we have spent a lot of time on this podcast the last few seasons being very hot and cold about him, wondering about why he's good one game, not good in another. And I do think that this is what's fascinating about this, is that he really now has been asked to take over a primary kind of critical position as a number 9 in this new system with a new coach, and they've put a lot of responsibility on him as a high-paid, homegrown DP.
Yeah, if we go back to 2019, Jesus had half of a good season that year playing as a 9. And I think that's what, they're banking on. Once he was adapted and used properly as a 10, then he had a good season as a 10. It took him a while to adjust to playing back there as that off striker type, and getting paired with a guy like Pepe, who he works better with, with both have movement. But yeah, part of the reason why I think he's getting paid is because his agent is really skillful. And there were teams that were interested in Jesus this winter, multiple teams, and when you're selling Pepe for $20 million, and here come teams sniffing around to buy your other, main goal scorer from last year, excuse me, you might have a moment of, oh man, what are we going to do? We can't lose both these guys. And so there probably had to be a conversation of what's it going to take to get you to stay here for the next 5 or 6 years. We need to keep somebody and build around them. We just got all this money for Pepe. We might as well use some of it. So I think that's why, the money thing happened. I try and separate the money from the field, of course. So I think when you combine, the production at that position for a half of a season and the way you've seen him do it at a pretty decent way for the national team, I'm pretty sure that you can feel pretty confident in MLS terms about using that guy in that spot. This is a little bit of a rebuilding year, so it's not necessarily important that he scores 20 goals or anything. This isn't an MLS Cup Challenge year. So I think they're probably content to build with him and go forward with him. And if he had a desire to be here, that maybe means a lot, because there's a lot of dudes that don't want to be here and want to get out. And if he wanted to be here, that's good.
All right, Dan, and this is not me being argumentative. I'm just expressing a question in my head. But the fact that all of the great second half of 21 of Jesus that you paid against was a guy playing a very different position than you're asking him to play this year, right?
It was. I mean, if we can take anything from from the two games this week about the way he's played as kind of like false nine. He does drop into the same positions. He, at various times in that San Antonio game, he dropped behind and let Areola or O'Brien kind of come into the role. He switched to the sides a couple of times, dropped back as like a dual 10 with Paxton. So the problem you get is when he's dropping back even deeper, like Buzz had mentioned, behind Edwin. If they want him to kind of drop back and allow Areola or O'Brien to kind of come in as that second striker, that's fine. They've both played that position before. I did a little takeaways piece from the San Antonio game and highlighted an overload where they kind of went to like almost a flat five up front. And it was Jesus and Imitumasi's movement that kind of triggered the whole thing. It's just he's got to not get lost in the game. He's got to be that line breaking pass guy or run guy. He's not got to be the guy that goes back in search of the ball like early Pepe or even Cobra to a degree, who just tries to find the game and gets lost in it.
Buzz, is it unfair to say that Jesus being successful in whatever variation of 9 he plays this year may be the number one thing to keep an eye on for this new season?
Yeah, I think that's unquestionably true. That's the position that'll make or break the team in terms of true success this year. You're not likely to get 10 to 15 goals from a wing or an 8. They're kind of lining up where you might have multiple guys with high single-digit goals. It might be one of those seasons where your leading scorer is going to have 7, 8, or 9, but you might have 6 or 7 guys sort of in that same neck of the woods. If Jesus can carry that 8 or 9 goals up to 13, 14, 15, then you're looking at a Jason Christ-like season and some real success. I don't think that still won't be challenged for MLS Cup success, but that'll be comfortably in the playoffs and maybe, getting a chance to beat a team or two in the playoffs if you can get that kind of output from him. So he's the most volatile position and guy this year, I think, in terms of success or failure just from his play. I don't even, I'm not counting like a guy getting hurt or something. If Jesus stinks it up, this thing's not going to go very well because then you're stuck with Frank O'Hara. And as much as we like him as a bench piece, if you have to start him every game, that's a problem because he's too old to do that.
Right. It probably means hot air O'Brien, which may even be worse in many ways.
Yeah, no, certainly worse. That's certainly not a positive option by any means.
All right, you used the phrase make or break, which would lead me to my talking point number 2, which is I'm hoping you guys will agree with me that 2022 is, without question, Paxton Pomacall's make or break season.
I think it is in terms of his career.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to translate it into him specifically. Yeah, in terms of FC Dallas, even if he were to get hurt again or not having a great year, it's not like FC Dallas would give up on him because, they have a lot invested with him and he could be a lifetime player here to be MLS quality. But if he wants to be playing at a higher level than FC Dallas, he needs to, show he can get through a season healthy and also make a progressive step. If he looks like he looked last year, it's probably, the big career move is probably going to be out the window. You never know. He could turn into his prime at 27 and somebody might make a splash for him. It won't ever be like to a 20 million kind of splash though. This is a big one.
So Dan, Buzz's 3 takeaways video that he posted after the scrimmage today was expressing, I don't know, Buzz, if you meant it as concern, but his takeaway of, man, Paxton and Brandon are going to have to do a lot of work this year. Do you feel like that maybe puts Paxton's health situation at threat, or does that actually work in his favor?
I think that potentially works in his favor. If we look at like the whole 2-year recovery, year 1 is get better. Year 2 is start to get back to the old you. We're still looking at the end of this season, starting next as kind of 100% Paxton. Now it's sharpening the tools, and I mean, yeah, if you're in a constant midfield battle, you're not going to get a better opportunity to do that. He's pain-free now. He's gone his season without surgery. So hopefully this is kind of it, and this is the end of it. And it's definitely better than putting him in kind of a receding role in the team where he can't take over games and kind of dictate pace. We've seen, a little bit of that where a lot of plays pass through him, and Sylvania is there to help kind of take some of the burden away. But we're definitely seeing, like you said, you had those warm, fluttery feelings inside seeing Paxton do Paxton things.
Boy, do I ever. So that would take me to talking point 2A, which comes off of Buzz's comment about the amount of work that Brandon and Paxton are going to have to do, which is the frightening reality. This team is very, very thin at center midfield. I mean, if Paxton or Brandon have any kind of extended injury or they need to take a break, they don't really have a quality option to fill that spot.
Yeah, by the way, Dan, well played using the word receding when discussing Paxton. Right now, you're looking at maybe a Areola sliding in there. Imatu Omasi can slide in there. You can flip to a double and go Faku and Edwin, or really you could even use Faku as an 8 in a pinch. And we've seen Edwin do 8 in a pinch. I don't like it, but I've seen him do it. You can even do something crazy like Khalil in there. They've got, there's
none of that is good.
None of it is good. Well, that's what we've been talking about for weeks now. This glaring, gigantic hole in the 8 position on the depth chart. There's a couple open roster spots. There's a massive problem. Even if they sign Blaine Ferry, which I want them to do, there still is both he and Siki are not ready to start level players. If you want competition, legit competition in every position, you need a player at the 8 who is capable of being an MLS starter. They don't need to be better than Paxton and Brandon, but they need to be able to actually legitimately push those two guys. Maybe like a Shun-like U22 guy might be a good option. Possibly they do have an open international spot. Maybe there's a thought they're just going to wait till May for Thomas to come back. His loan does not have a bye. This is a new coach. He might be willing to give Thomas a shot. And so maybe he's willing to wait. I don't know. Well, it's a process, right?
All right. So what is currently Blaine Ferry's situation? And I ask because if you're going to tell me they're going to sign him, I think there is a significant reason why that is a really huge deal in our local soccer scene.
Yeah.
And I'll explain that.
Sure. Blaine's situation is that North Texas Soccer Club picked up his option for this year, so he is under contract. But he's been with FC Dallas the whole spring and did not go back to North Texas when they split the teams up. Initially, he was wearing number 34, and today they changed him to number 27. Now, you might not think that's a big deal, but if this was the start of the season, that would mean that he was getting a contract because that's a jump from a trialist academy number up to a squad number. Those minor little things matter. Nothing's locked in stone because it is preseason. So there are a lot of signs that they're either seriously considered signing him or they already have signed him as a depth piece at the 8. They have room for him. And I'm sure, Peter, you're going to tell the story of what his backstory is because he is definitely a very talented player that we're glad to see making progress again.
Well, the reason why I think it's significant, and I don't mean to get away from the talking points too far, but the reason why Dallas signing him would be significant is I think I'm correct in saying, would he not be the first player FC Dallas signed that essentially is a homegrown, but from a different club team in the Dallas area? He's a Solar kid. He's not an FC Dallas kid. Has Dallas ever signed somebody that didn't come from their own academy, but was a local kid?
And Nicky Hernandez played for Texans.
Ah, that's the one I'm forgetting. Okay.
I mean, if you want to go way back, pre their academy, that Ramon was.
Yeah, I think that's different. But okay. Well, even if he's not the first, I still think that's a significant deal that a kid can come from Solar or some other, DKSC or whatever, and actually get the opportunity to play for FC Dallas at the MLS level would be a huge deal.
Well, important that he would be the first Solar guy, I'm pretty sure. But also, he can't be a homegrown. He is from their homegrown territory, but if he signed a professional deal when he was with North Texas, that means that homegrown territory no longer applies, number one. And number two, he couldn't be a homegrown because he didn't actually play for the FC Dallas Academy. while yes, you can sign him, and I think that they're leaning towards doing that. He can't be a homegrown for multiple technical reasons, but I'm with you that it still is a great signing to get a guy from another academy who definitely did not want to be involved with FC Dallas at all when he was a player, adamantly, and then also it's a usage of North Texas to get a guy who needed a reclamation, was a project player, and to see him get here, get his mind right and progress himself and become a serious pro. I say that without having talked to him, of course, but I can just look at his behavior on the field only and tell that there's been a change in the kid. He's now behaves in terms of training and the way his body as a legit adult professional, and he's making great strides in the team. Now, is he ready to start instead of Paxton? No, of course not. But if you're talking about a guy who can provide a good piece for you for some years going ahead, I think he definitely qualifies.
Imagine a world many, many years ago when Dallas decided to get into this youth/academy soccer business. If they had just considered how they managed all those relationships with all the other existing established soccer community in North Texas, and really, really worked hard to try to do this as a collaborative thing and not a competitive, hey, we're going to kill and take from everybody kind of thing, and all of the awful relationships that everything turned into. I think 2022 would look very, very different in many ways, especially when it comes to attendance. Let's see. That leads me to talking point number 3, which is another rookie coach. I still continue to spend more time than I probably should pondering the oddity of the fact that Luchi Gonzalez and Nico Estevez essentially just traded jobs. And I think I'm ready to admit that I think Nico is fundamentally a different level coach than Luchi. But he also arrives with 0 MLS head coaching experience, and I am a little concerned that that's an element of unknown for everybody moving into the new season. Dan, do you have any concerns about that, at least so far?
Maybe later in the season. Right now, I think, there's such a feel-good factor in FC Dallas, the sort of thing that can patch over some of those personnel-related rookie mistakes. Speaking to people in the organization, he's got a much clearer vision of how he wants the system to be than Luchi did, where, we every preseason, Buzz and I would say, yeah, they're talking about pressing, and then 3 weeks later, it's weird, they were talking about pressing, it just went away. What he wants his style to be is far more defined and based on, experience as an MLS bench coach and a scout and a US men's national team bench coach, and then lower down in Spain, which Luchi, we talked about how many times he had tendencies that were geared towards the academy, like taking a Ryan Hollingshead and being like, well, or a Jesus, of he can play in several places, so he has to be there somewhere, and then you end up kind of ruining that player to a degree.
Buzz, you are a person that spends an inordinate amount of time, or at least a unique amount of time, with head coaches. Do you have any sense that, I guess the question is he fundamentally different from Luchi in ways that make you not worry about his resume or experience as an MLS head coach?
Yeah, the biggest one is, when I sat down and looked at the resume, how many times did we talk about Luchi and the idea that he had never coached adults? And the idea that it was, while I liked him as a coach, I was really worried about that experience. And then you sit down and you look at Nico Estevez's resume, and yes, he started out coaching in some academy, but then he coached the B team, which is equivalent to coaching North Texas for a few years. And then somebody else launched a team in a B level. I can't remember what it was. And so but it was their first team. So he went and coached that team for a season. And they went back to Valencia and coached their reserve team, which is, again, different variations of different leagues, and then, filled in as an interim coach, which is the Marco Ferruzzi kind of thing. So Luchi had none of that. So if you sit down and look at their resumes, you can see that if you put them on the same track, which you can now say, well, Luchi going to the assistant with a national team, great, move on Luchi's part, broaden his resume, that Estevez is basically a decade ahead of Luchi in terms of the progression of his career. So I don't have a big problem with a first-year coach by itself, and I think that there's plenty of meat on Estevez's resume to think that he has all the qualities. Now, in terms of me dealing him personally and watching him work training, what the biggest change right now from Lucci is the word I will use is the word focus. Lucci talked a whole lot more all the time. You can see it on the sidelines that Estevez does not. In training, Estevez talks a lot less than Lucci does. So maybe when he does talk, people pay attention a little bit more. There's a whole lot more tactical specifics. This is the first coach that I can recall that brings a whiteboard out onto the grass to draw up the drill in front of everybody. This is exactly what we're doing. That's a different thing. So the crispness of sessions, the tightness of sessions, the way it's all planned out and coordinated, that's all of that I put under the idea of focus. So that's the biggest, the 10 years more of the resume, and that slight difference from Lucci, which maybe Lucci will be that way eventually, but he's not now. Now Lucci's a teacher, a speaker, gives speeches a lot. So people towards the end, I think, tuned him out a lot. So that for now, that's the biggest demonstrable difference. Nico Estevez's interviews are way shorter, and so far they're all still full of coach speak for the most part. So I got to get him to come around on that. But
just charming.
There's even one more thing that we highlighted with Lucci a lot was that he surrounded himself with a lot of people who were also in an early stage in their MLS coaching career. Whereas Nico has Javier Cabello and Miguel Villagrasa, both of those guys have like 25 years of professional coaching experience each.
I would not mind
at the highest level too.
Yeah, the piece that Estevez is missing is the same piece Lucci actually was missing, was a guy that's been in MLS for 15 years. A guy like when Hyman got hired, he went out and got, what's his name?
Gorman.
Who?
Gorman?
No, Gorman was the TD. Ellinger, John Ellinger. Sorry,
Ellinger, right?
There. Yeah.
Ellinger, yeah.
Yeah.
Ellinger.
So the good example for FC Dallas would be Marco. Like if you'd have just gone ahead, put Marco on the bench as an assistant, that somebody that has 15 years of league experience. So Lucine's been in this league, but only for a couple of years, right?
Ben Cross is the other one.
Who?
Ben Cross is the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's only had a few years in the league, but guy's got an MLS Cup at least.
Yeah, it's the MLS technicalities and like minutia and tiny little things of a guy who's been around the league a long time is the only piece they're missing. Now, hopefully, perhaps Drew Keyshawn is that guy, so maybe he'll fill that role as he tried to do under Lucci. But I still think there could have been a guy like that on the bench, but it's not the guy that has that same role, as you say, is just not with tons of experience, just isn't an MLS guy. That's all. So there's no reason to think that with Estevez's time at Columbus and with the national team that he hasn't learned enough to be fine. So it's a tiny, tiny concern.
Okay. That leads us to talking point about the 22 season number 4. And this is a particular bone I have. And I realize that ultimately the answer to this may be that Dallas really didn't have too much of a choice because this particular player really wanted to go. But I'm just sticking my flag in the ground now that I'm really worried that loaning Justin Che away from this team is going to come back to haunt them this season. And I wondering if you guys see that as a mistake in the same way I do.
I don't think it's a mistake. When you combine the idea that he wanted to go and you combine the idea that using him at right back last year cost you a fair amount, maybe you could maybe directly point to the points lost as to why they missed the playoffs by, 1 or 2 points. I think that, in my opinion, using him out wide is a mistake. There are other people that think he can be a right back. I don't think I think he can be a serviceable right back. I think he can be a great center back, but it's going to take 3 or 4 years of playing center back for him to get there. Just like it has with Chris Richards.
But who is thinking about using him as a right back? I'm talking about using him as one of your 4 center backs. I mean, to me, the reason why I'm mad is that I think he should be in Dallas fighting for a starting job as a center back on this team, especially when you take into consideration the 2 guys you consider your veteran starters are guys coming off of just injury-laden seasons. One's north of 30 and one's close to it, and we still don't know how good Martinez is, frankly. I'm not worried about Tafari. That's just why I think loaning Che is just going to end up being a big problem this year.
Well, it's the problem for me here is that he would not have started a lot. You would have kept him around with the idea that he might get a couple. So then you're either going to use him at right back, which to me is a problem, or you got to try and convince the kid to go play at North Texas again. And you got to say, I need you to start 25 games in North Texas. And he's not going to want to do that. Right? He thinks he should be starting in Major League Soccer. He's not going to go back to North Texas. Whereas, like, if you're talking about a Bundesliga team, well, I'll play for that team's reserves because I'm, at the Bundesliga. So when you're 17 years old, that's a big difference. Especially when a guy who's mad that you didn't sell him to Bayern and he worked something else out, then you got the loan deal. So I'm not on board. I'm okay with it being loaned. It's not a sale. They just loaned him. So
all right, Dan, whose side are you taking on this one?
I'm with Buzz on that. I think you're wasting his development if you say, okay, your fourth choice centre back, so you're not even guaranteed to make the 18. You're not going to have him. He's not going to go to North Texas. His other option is, okay, he's fighting with Nanu and Ima Tumasi to be one of the two options at right back.
I don't know why you guys keep talking about right back. I keep wondering why he's not fighting for a starting job as a center back. If he's this quality, if he is the talent everybody tells me he is as a center back in terms of upside, why isn't he? And if in fact he turns out to be getting, if in fact, as the coach over there says he's going to get time in the Bundesliga as a center back, or whatever he's getting over there. I don't know, because I think they play 3 in the back. Why isn't he doing that here in Dallas?
Well, because he's 17. The Bundesliga team has said that one reason they like him is because they can move him all over and they can play him at right back and left back. So, they're going to move him all over the place. I think it's a disservice, but I'm basing the idea that that they would use him at right back because FC Dallas has said that they see him as having either profile. They think he can do great at both. I disagree, but it's their club. At center back, a 17-year-old kid, which is what he was when I last looked, is not going to be starting at center back. Not an MLS. There's far too much experience needed to be in there, and he's not going to get it. At least in the Bundesliga, like he'll be in that training, and it'll probably crush him for a bit, and they'll be able to send him down to their second team and reserve team and get him minutes and bring him back and forth, and he'd probably feel better about that than he did, doing that same thing here at North Texas. Now, I would use him before I'd use Bartlett, but that still is Dan's right. He's not going to make the bench for the first 6 months of the season.
Okay. All right. Well, I was going to say, would you lean anywhere towards my side of thinking now that you've seen Bartlett play? But I guess you've already answered that question.
Well, yeah, no, I would have him on the depth chart ahead of Bartlett, but that doesn't mean that I'm not okay with a loan. If it's not working out, you can bring him back. They didn't sell him yet.
I just want to, I've stuck my flag in the ground when Hedges and Martinez are both, on the sideline and Dallas is desperate for a center back. Don't be mad at me when I laugh at everybody. Okay?
if Bartlett ends up having to play, then I might agree with. Then I'll probably come back and say, "My bad, you were right." I'm looking this way: is it a mistake for Che or a mistake for the team to loan him? Which is the way you mean, Peter?
Well, yeah. So again, this is one of those deals where I'm out of my depth, but my feeling is I don't want to see Che in a Brian Reynolds situation. You and I both know that the odds of him getting starting Bundesliga time, double time, is very low, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to end up playing in some sort of German regional league, or with their U23s or whatever it is, which isn't as good, and I don't think as good a use of his time as he would get here in Dallas. I think he's good enough to arguably fight for a starting center back position on this team. He's faster, he's younger, he's more mobile than either Martinez and Hedges, and I think him battling with Tafari for that third position is a real thing that probably would have been better for his career, but I'm also not a kid who spent time in Germany and have dreams of doing that. So I guess I shouldn't hold that against him.
My base assumption based on how these things go is that they'll play him in their reserve team for a season. At the end of that time, when the loan is up, they'll decide whether they want to buy him or not. And if they buy him, then they'll loan him like Bayern did, loaning Chris to Hoffenheim. They'll loan him out to somebody lower down the division or in the second division in order to get him actual playing time at center back until, 2 years later, he'll actually be ready to play for Hoffenheim. So,
right.
Or play in, or until they actually can get Richards or not, and that'll change things too. So
I think Che's situation probably is better for him because that's what he wanted to do. But I am concerned that Dallas will regret it because I'm not convinced Hedges and Martinez can stay healthy. I'm just very worried about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That takes us to the final talking point of the 2022 season. And in many ways, this may be the most important one, although it has nothing to do with the on-field product, which is the following. Can this front office affect the change needed to regularly fill Toyota Stadium 16 times a year?
I think that this market, you can do that. I don't know that in the history of this club, we've seen them be able to execute it, to be able to do that. Nothing in their history says that they will be capable of doing it. So it's all going to be about the new guy. Clearly things have changed around this club. They're acting differently in terms of player acquisition. They're acting differently in lots of phases of the front office that we can tell, that we are privy to. They're acting slightly different already in the marketing. We're seeing advertising in places we've never seen it before. So it depends on whether they are capable of taking the message of this new era. You see it trumpeting it all over the place and communicating that out to the general audience. So technically, the ability is here in this market to make it happen, but nothing in the track record says that they have been able to before this.
I like that you gave them that game off and said only fill it 16 times a season.
No. I forgot. Right, there's more than 16.
Can this front office do that? No. I think some of the personalities at the top, and one of them may be the president of the team and one of the two owners, gets in their own way a little bit too much for things like that. When it comes to giveaways, promotions, things like that, there is definitely some people in high places who have attitudes of, well, we need to see like 100% return on investment, which is just completely unrealistic, not a gradual growth. Now, maybe Jerome, the new VP of marketing, can convince people to change their ways, but there's just way too much to change to sort of say in the short term that they'll regularly fill that stadium.
Yeah, I'm just worried this is like a restaurant that's just had too many incidences of food poisoning over the years, and the word's gotten around, and the amount of money and time and effort it was going to take to reestablish trust and interest and burn off all the apathy that the Hunts have, barnacled on this ship over the last almost 20 years is just so great. I don't know what they're going to be able to do to generate the interest. And the only thing that I can think of that is the fact that maybe a Paxton or a Jesus or these kids that are playing on a national scale when they're playing with the national team just become enough of an interest to generate and drive. Because look, selling 20,000 tickets 16, 17 times a year is in professional sports business not a big lift, right? I mean, that's not a big number. It's not like selling out Texas Stadium or anything like that. That's a small, tiny stadium. It's 20,000 people. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm hopeful, but I'm also very suspect.
Just to take the restaurant analogy, it's kind of like having like a real niche cuisine as well, and the most fanatical people in the area who've tried it over the past 25 years, you've given them food poisoning to the point where it killed them.
Yeah,
and you need to try and convince new people now.
Or maybe a little less dramatic than that, Dan, is just that the dining experience just hasn't, gotten them to want to come back on a regular basis, right? Like,
well, I mean more I'm talking about the people who were like, yeah, MLS is a level I'm willing to invest in. I'm willing to drive from Fort Worth or Wichita Falls or Waxahachie or wherever. And over years and years, they've just been ground down by salespeople, by the quality of the team and things the organization do. I mean, I think, it's kind of like if they want to really fill that stadium every week, they've got to get new people, and they've also got to find a way, in some way, to convince the people who they've kind of pushed away to turn the TV back on, to maybe make the the Houston game, things like that, if you want to like really regularly rain or shine fill that stadium.
Well, a big component of it is, and this is where the team has really fallen down badly, is just in their relationship with the local sports media. I mean, I know personally that, the apathy levels about this club across radio, print, and television has been and continues to be terribly low. And I know that there are people inside the club that will try to argue otherwise, but I'm in that business, and I'm telling you, nobody cares, and they are a critical component of it.
Remember a few years ago, every week without fail, you'd have on Fox or NBC, you'd have Stephen Keel popping up on one day, Dan Hunt's on another day, George John's on a different day. Now they can't get a look in unless someone gets flung 30 feet by a car and breaks their neck.
Well, they don't have that anymore either. So that is I do think that's another, if we're thinking about off the field things to think about and keep an eye on for this season, it is, do they jump up the attendance and season ticket sales and rankings in terms of anything else? So I think that that's something to keep an eye on. All right. Those are my 5 things. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did.
By the way, Houston Dynamo just dropped their kit.
Oh, jumping back to kit talk. Let's look at this. I see it in the GroupMe chat. Okay, so it's a black shirt with, have they explained what this pattern is? It looks like a dirty countertop. It looks like, you know what? It looks like a black quartz countertop. Yeah,
it's called the Bayou City kit.
Okay.
It looks like an oil slick in the Bayou.
Yeah, it does. That's exactly what it looks like, yes. Interesting that the 3 stripes on the top are silver and not orange.
Yeah, a lot of the trim on this one is orange. Just very, very light little cuff and a little bit of collar and a tiny bit of logo. But they're only on the black these days. That's they're more black than they are orange.
This is their away or their primary?
It's their secondary.
Secondary, okay.
Guys, most importantly, the cuff and the collars and the collar and the cuffs do not match.
Yeah, it says silver, by the way. Technically, not that you care
Buzz
about
didn't
that.
get the joke that time.
I was reading the press release rather than listening. Sorry, the collar and the cuffs don't match.
Yeah, only one of them's ginger. The other one's a silver fox.
All right. So, do you guys want to hear an interesting story related to the club that came up the other day?
Oh, do
Always.
I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I live for this.
Okay. Do you guys? I want everybody to put on the Wayback Machine and go back to like 2012, somewhere in there, towards when Shellis Hyman was the coach of the team. Do you guys remember when you would visit with people that work at the team that there was this running kind of story going around about a guy who was like kept popping up inside the office or on the field prior to games, and nobody really could figure out who he was. And there was always this conversation with people that worked in the club that there was a guy who was posing as an employee or a staff member, and it was kind of a running joke that nobody knew who he worked for or who he was, and his name was Brad. Do you guys ever remember hearing about that back in the day?
Well, only in the vaguest terms do I remember this story at all, and it may be that I'm making it up now because I don't. It's only just sort of tickling that I maybe. No, I got nothing.
Okay, Dan, do you remember it at all?
No, I was in a different country at the time.
Okay. So just to kind of flesh this out, there was at the time, if you would talk to people around the club, and it became more of a mythical lore story in the years after the fact, that people would reflect on it and joke about it, about the guy who was posing as an employee or a member of the coaching staff and nobody knew who he was. And and it was just this crazy deal. And ultimately, what ended up, I believe, happening is that it had gotten so bad that the club had to ban him from the facility. And I think the breaking point was somebody caught him in one of the suites on a game day, talking to season ticket holders, telling people he was the vice president of the club. And somebody actually saw this happening and had to kick him out, and they had to threaten him and tell him never to come back. And I've heard stories that after the fact, key employees had to contact him and insist that he removed from his LinkedIn page that he was an employee of that particular person at the club. Okay, so the reason why I'm telling you the story is that if you are a person that follows local news or local politics or local political news, last weekend a story popped up about a guy named Brad Namdar who is running for Texas Congress and is a Republican candidate, and he had been endorsed by the Dallas Morning News. Well, he has been charged with allegations that he had hired a local hooker on a few occasions. And he's also this guy that's part of this anti-sex trafficking program. But apparently this local hooker has claimed that he's hired her a few times. And then it came out that he at one point had been an assistant soccer coach or something at North Dallas High School, and a teenage girl had accused him back in the day of being inappropriate with her, and it turned into this whole thing. Well, this Brad Namdar is the guy that is the mythical guy from FC Dallas.
So he's the guy that's been faking he was working for the team.
Yes, it's the same dude. And so it's a weird story, guys, because the word was at the time that he had gotten into the club because he was from SMU, right? And he had come up through Schellas-Hyman Association, that Schellas was the one that brought him into the club. Well, there's also a backstory to this, because he has claimed that he was part of Schellas's coaching staff at SMU and had done something with the soccer team that then somehow allowed him to walk on the SMU football team. And he's actually now part of SMU football lore. In 2011, SMU was playing A&M, and they had scored late and brought it close. And so to try to win the game or at least catch up, they tried to execute an onside kick. Well, if you remember this, it is the worst execution of an onside kick you will ever see in the game of football. And the person kicking the ball looks like he's never kicked a football once in his life. It's Brad Namdar.
It is unbelievable.
It is the most crazy, insane story. After this, he leaves, somehow gets into the FC Dallas building, and I think I'm kind of putting things together. I think he wedged his way into the offices, and nobody really knew if Schellas had hired him as an intern, and so nobody said anything, and Schellas saw him there and thought maybe somebody at the front office had hired him as an intern, and he just kind of like settled in there. So there's like pictures of him at pregame warm-ups and coaching gear. It's the craziest story in the whole world. So if you're reading the headlines about a guy running for Congress charged with hiring a hooker or whatever, and you see the name Brad Namdar, know that he has a significant place in FC Dallas mythical back office lore. So
that honestly is one of the best FC Dallas stories I've ever heard. That's phenomenal.
It may need to go on the vaunted list of things unique to Dallas that we got to add that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
For multiple years.
Yeah, for multiple years. Okay, let's see what else. Buzz, you are trying to keep everybody up to date with a new article about the academy and kids playing for North Texas.
Yeah, I just managed to ask enough people that I got what I think is a pretty close to comprehensive list of all the academy guys that are currently with North Texas. I've talked a little bit about how North Texas is going to be changing a little bit this year in terms of the number of academy players. So we don't need to talk about it on the pod, but I just wanted to trumpet it on the website. You guys can all go. I put a short blurb about every one of the guys that's in North Texas training, because there's a good chance you're going to see a fair amount of them playing for North Texas this year if you're into that scene, which I think is really important. I really like it. So just wanted to trumpet that a little bit. You guys should all go check it out.
And then I saw that all the way from a TV station in Arkansas, Tommy Poo is getting a little television pub back in his home state.
Yeah, it's a fun little news feature. And the two things that struck me about it, one is how articulate Thomas is, in the sense that his answers aren't cliched, just like I'm happy to be here and it was good and then it was cool. He actually gave a couple of decent, thoughtful answers. You know, he's still a relatively young guy, so that was kind of impressive. And the other was, despite the fact that in the introduction to the piece and in the story and everything else, it clearly says Austria. In the middle of the feature, the local news guy says he's playing in the Australian First Division in the middle of the story. Meanwhile, he's wearing the kit, you know, and he's talking about going to Austria, and it's like, and the voiceover says Australia.
They don't know the difference in Arkansas.
Yeah, it is Arkansas. Yeah.
They don't know the difference.
Yeah.
That's good for Tommy Poo. I saw somebody ask you on Twitter, is he ever coming back to play for Dallas? That's never. He doesn't want to come back, does he?
Well, I think the key word is play. If he feels like the new coach wants him to come in and may actually play, depending on where Paxton and Brandon are, you're probably going to need people to go in there at some point. Those guys can't play 34 games each. So it'll depend on that conversation, because there is no buy clause in his loan. It ends in May, period. So they will have to come in and renegotiate a price. So how much do they want him? How much does the new coach want him? We'll see.
Okay. The next scrimmage is Saturday. Is that correct?
Saturday, 6 p.m.
And what is the options for attending said scrimmage?
It's the same as the San Antonio one. If you bought a ticket to the opening game of the regular season, then you got a ticket to this game, which includes season ticket holders. It is going to be streamed, though. That's what the team says anyway. So,
and then I also saw today that they announced that they are on Friday, though, holding a practice that you are open to attend and pull up a chair for, correct?
For fans, yeah. They ask everybody to park in the blue Tundra lot, which I think is the one on the east side of the field number 4. And that's where they'll be. You have to look through the fence. You don't get to come into the side of the fence, according to the thing I saw anyway. So, bring a lawn chair and pull up. And I'm sure that they will have some coach talking to the fans and some player interaction and that kind of stuff. They wouldn't trumpet an open session if they didn't include that kind of stuff. And the kit drop is that morning. So entirely possible. I have no idea for sure, but entirely possible there might be some kit opportunities or discount opportunities or whatever if you go watch that. It's rare to get an open training session here in FC Dallas open to the fans, so people should take advantage of it.
Dan, do you think when there's a break in between sessions, they'll give fans an opportunity to hit corner buckets?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
They should do that. They should totally do that.
I think they should just have a fans v players game at the end of it. No referee, no rules, no nothing. Just chaos.
Murder ball.
40 fans versus 2 players. That'd be fair, actually.
Oh, we call it prison rules.
Yeah.
Prison rules. It'd be like those videos where it's like 2 guys against a bunch of school kids, like 100 school kids. That would be great.
That's the only way it would be even.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Tackles,
yeah.
Congratulations to Houston for having a super boring jersey. Good for them. Okay. Anything
they got
else?
3 points in a friendly.
I saw that.
They celebrated.
So ridiculous. Yeah. That's like Dan Hunt doing the 3 more points chant during the playoff game.
Oh, jeez, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can laugh at Houston. Just remember that you can't. You can only laugh because you can at least understand the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah.
Anything else that we need to talk about today, fellas?
Shout out to El Jefe for doing the Soccer 90 reads today. First fan.
This is Dustin Chrisman reminding you that Third Degree, the podcast, has been brought to you by Soccer 90, located at Toyota Stadium next to the National Soccer Hall of Fame. Check out the new Ted Lasso headbands, new MLS gear, and of course, the new FC Dallas home jersey. All Third Degree listeners receive 20% off their purchase when you use code Third Degree at checkout on soccer90.com. Some exclusions may apply. Support local soccer, y'all.
Thank you to Pappy Check for the beautiful music as well. Dan, thank you for all your time and insights, sir. Good, well done stuff there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you, Buzz, for all your amazing hard work on your 25th season, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. Let me know when you're going to get this Brad dude on your kick around. I'll tune in for that.
I don't think Brad Namdar, although I do feel like I need to run out when the new jersey comes out. I need to get a new jersey with Namdar on the back.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be a very obscure reference. No one's going to get that.
That would be a very, very obsure but hilarious reference. All right, what?
It's just funny. I was just going to remind him really quick. There's probably 10 times in my life where somebody I know has told me that their friend played for the Burner FC Dallas, and I'm like, no, he didn't. And they're like, oh yeah, no, he was up. No, he didn't. You know.
Look, I think that the story of this guy is an onion that is going to peel apart, and we're going to find out he's that catch me if you can kind of guy who has somehow finagled his way through the system, and he's got absolutely nothing going on, yet somehow he's going to we're going to find out that his entire life is just this, scam or grift at one right after the other. That's just what I wonder if that's how this is all going to end up playing out. And somehow, some way, FC Dallas played a small part in it. That would be pretty damn funny if you could agree. All right, do I get to try my dismount again here?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Dismounting attempt number 2. Thank you, FC Dallas Curious Fan. We will speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Namdar is a funny name, though.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.